Hey, today I have Erin Elgin on. She's a franchisee with Sola Salon Studios in the Twin Cities. She's got like 14 locations, and she's really worked herself out of working in the business all the time. Very hands-on in the beginning, and then recently has transitioned to taking more of a leadership role. And so we talked through, how do you go from being a full-time franchisee in the business all the time to transitioning out of that by some key hires. So I hope you enjoy the show.
Representing Franchise Secrets, Erik Von Horn.
Erin, welcome to the show.
Hi, Erik. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, you're a big franchisee. You and your husband, big franchisees with Sola. I was a franchisee before you were a franchisee, so let's set the record straight on that. But I think you guys have gone on to do much bigger and better things within that system than I ever did or ever would have been able to. So I want to get into that, but let's audience a bit of your background before we dive into like owning a lot of real estate and being an amazing Sola franchisee.
Sure. Yeah, so we opened our first salon back in 2013 in Twin Cities, Minnesota, and now 11 years later,
Minnesota, eh?
we have 14 locations.
Hey, you have to laugh at that. I mean, how strong is your accent? Is Patrick's accent?
Well, mine's worse than his, and great words that are examples of it are egg and egg and bag.
So I'm from South Dakota. I don't quite have that, but I just had to state the obvious. So I'm glad you kind of led us into like how real Minnesotans talk. So not quite like Canadians though. How close is it to Canadians?
Oh, I don't. What are we? A 5-hour drive up to the border, so I'm kind of a little more in the south. But I do think Canadians' accents are worse than mine.
Or better, however you think about it, Canadians. All right, let's go back into Sola. So I totally interrupt you there, kind of on purpose though. I had to throw you off a little.
Oh,
all right, go back to Sola.
all in good fun. So we have 14 locations. 5 of those are buildings that we own. 2 of those one was actually a foreclosed building, pretty dilapidated, that we turned into a Sola. 3 of them were ground up builds where I found a plot of land in a good area at a good price, and then we designed and built the buildings. We also bought out 2 other franchisees that were in the Twin Cities, so I've experience with buying existing units as well. 640 beauty professionals. We're the largest salon operator in the upper Midwest now.
What's cool about that is when you and I both first started in the salon suite business, it wasn't that popular. Like to say the kind of the largest beauty owner in that area back then, people didn't like, it was new, it was a new concept and it wasn't really embraced. There were large salon owners out there, but they didn't embrace the salon suite concept. So you've kind of seen that whole industry evolve. Any comments on that as you've seen that grow and evolve?
Well, yeah. So when we had an inquiry come through back in 2013, in the first few years, we had to explain to them what a salon suite was. Like, they didn't get it. And at least here, commission and employee salons it was more like a 70-30 split, I'd say, between commission and chair rental salons. So even hair rental salons were nowhere near as big and popular as they are now too. So we think the shift is more like 65 to 70% rental now in Minnesota and 30% commission. So that's quite a swing in only an 11-year period.
Yeah, it's a huge swing. And I brought that up because I want the audience to understand, like, you were in a newer industry. It wasn't like, oh, just open these things up and everything turns to gold. There was risk involved early on and a lot of capital outlay as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's very expensive to build a Sola unit, so you're making a very large investment. And then some of our early salons took 2 or 2.5 years to fill. I mean, so you can think about how slow and drawn out And I just kept telling myself, slow and steady wins the race. Slow and steady wins the race.
How are those salons today? Those ones that maybe took two plus years to fill?
Once they hit that 100% occupancy, then they stay there. Not a problem to keep them full. And now, like our latest one we just built in Coon Rapids, Riverdale Village, was 65 studios. So quite
Oh, wow.
huge. I mean, it's more than double the size of the average Sola. And we opened at 88% occupied and got to 100% occupied in under 4 months. I mean, that's just a totally different game than back in 2013, 14, when I'm opening, 32 studio ones and they're taking 2.5 years to fill.
Yeah. All right. So what are your biggest strengths? Like, as you look at yourself as a business owner and how you've evolved over the years, over 10 years doing this, what are you good at? What are you amazing at? What do you excel at?
I would say marketing is my biggest strength, which is pretty interesting because I'm actually a CPA by trade and I specialized in taxes.
Dude, there's no CPA that's a marketer. Like CPAs, like when we would look at concepts, or I was selling different concepts, and when it would come across engineer or CPA, we just thought that's going to be a disaster. So how in the world CPA background being good at marketing? Like, explain that to me, because those two things, that's oil and water right there.
Well, I guess I'm just a unicorn, right?
What?
No, I think I had a lot of creativity that was buried and hidden inside of me because I had put myself in a box. Calculus and chemistry were my favorite classes in high school, believe it or not. So then I just thought, oh, I'm a numbers person. I'm this. I'll go into business because I'll get a job. And I'm very good at anything involving numbers. But there's something else in me that I had just not recognized. So I had limiting beliefs about myself. I'm a CPA. I'm a type A personality. I'm good at numbers. That means I can't be creative. That means I can't sell. That means I can't market. And I was completely wrong. So I didn't take any marketing classes. I didn't sign up for any guru courses. I just figured it out on my own. So I showed up every day on our Instagram page and I put myself out there with trying to be authentic and real. And my intention was not to sell studios. I think that's part of the secret sauce. So my intention when I went on there was to connect with my target audience and to bring them tips, business tips, things to help them be more successful in the salon industry locally here, whether they were at Sola or not. So, I was coming in from, people ask me all the time, what's your secret sauce? And I say, that's what it is. I wasn't intending on selling anything. I was literally there to help people. And then that's going to pay off in return. So I showed up there going on Instagram stories like, oh, here, let's talk about when guests are canceling all the time, how to deal with that, how to build a loyal clientele, just endless topics, put myself out there, engage with the audience. It took a year and a half before I got my first inquiry as a DM on that Instagram page.
No way.
But then from there, it just, so then the following grew and, engagement every day with people. So I didn't know what I was doing, but I just kept going up.
Attention, franchisors and franchisees. There are two really important resources that I want to share with you that will help you avoid costly mistakes and increase your enterprise value. The first is our free Facebook group. It's a community that has over 4,000 franchisees and franchisors in it. When somebody asks a question, they get honest and authentic answers from multiple perspectives. You can join the group for free over at franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. The second resource I want to share with you is if you're a franchisor and you're frustrated that you're not awarding as many franchises as you thought you would, this is the reason I created the Franchisor Mastermind. If you want access to the information, the techniques that the best franchise sales organizations are using to award franchises, and you want what mature brands have, with their playbook of having happy, successful franchisees that grow the right way, then you might want to check out the Franchisor Mastermind. The reason why people join is they want access to my Rolodex, my connections. They want the playbook to achieve both short-term and long-term success. They want to increase enterprise value in their brand. Links will be in the show notes or at scalablefranchise.com. How uncomfortable were you when you turned on that camera for the first time, uploaded it for the first time? Like take us into what were you feeling at that time and how much confidence did you lack?
Well, I'd say my confidence was probably only a 10% out of 100 because, again, remember, I'd put myself in a box. I can't work it. I can't be on camera. I'm a CPA. And then I actually got nudged by one of our Sola tenants, and her name was Kit. You Kit. And she
Job,
said,
Kit.
you gotta go in there in stories and put your face on there. We love you here at Sola. You need to start going on. So she's the one that encouraged me. And yeah, I was terrified. So I was terrified going into it. I wrote out an outline, everything I was going to say, have it up. But then I realized I'm just talking to my phone. There's nobody here. So there was nothing to be afraid of because, literally, I'm by myself in my office. I have the door closed so none of my family can hear if I mess up. So it became natural and comfortable really, really fast. So I think if anybody wants to do public speaking and be on podcasts and all that, a really good place to start and practice would be put yourself out in Instagram stories and making videos that go on your Instagram page in the feed and reels because you're recording them by yourself so that can give you some confidence, at least in how you look and how you come across. So then I started to get more and more comfortable with it, became a daily habit. And then the things started happening, like the kids interrupting and coming in the middle of one. And it's you know what? I'm going to roll with it and leave those bloopers on there. And I think that's part of creating the connection with your target audience is if they see you're not perfect. I mean, Erik, I dressed up for you today. On my Sola page, I did not most of the time. So if I'm wearing sweatpants and, most of the time my hair's up on a high bun, no makeup, glasses, t-shirt, and I'm just going with it. And I think people like that because it's real,
100%.
real life.
Well, I dressed up for you today. See, I got the new Front Street hat and freshly washed shirt. And so we dressed up for this podcast today. But I love how you said you just authentic, you just started, yet some nudged you and you actually just did it. What's your comfort level now? Today, I would imagine people listening to this, people watching this, they're like, shoot, she's a natural. She's really good at this stuff. Are you, I'm comfortable. I'm on podcasts. I can do all of this stuff now. Now, this is years after I started doing it when I was very uncomfortable doing it. And I don't care what people say online. I don't care if my shirt's wrinkled, my hat's got stains on it. I don't care if my computer screen's showing back there. My Hawaii fluid art that I did this, by the way. I don't care about that stuff anymore. When I decided to do it, I'm like, I'm going to be authentically me. If there's a chicken crowing a rooster crowing in the background, a horse showing up, or, whatever it is, the bloopers, I'm good with that. So where are you now? Your comfort level, your ability to riff off of whatever, where are you?
Yeah, for videos like this, there's no nervousness.
Yeah.
I get worried that I might mess up and say the wrong thing or have a brain fart or something, but that's okay because that's real too. So my next goal I'm conquering is actually public speaking. So I still have hand shaking, leg shaking, deep fear of the live public speaking. So I actually spoke at an event we had for our Sola Pros last fall. There were 130 people there, and it was a big deal. So now I'm looking for opportunities to be out of my comfort zone, get on the stage, speak in front of larger groups because I just think that's my next step in my personal growth. And it's really funny because like teenage Erin was so fearful of, like, you remember when you had to do a presentation in school? I don't know if you're like me, I would worry the whole month leading up to the like as soon as it was assigned, it was like my heart sank, like, no, not a presentation. Class, like, why can't we just be writing a paper, taking a test? And I would say, I mean, and I still, so, what I found, like, when I did that speech for our Sola Pros, I made sure there was a podium in front of me so my hands and legs shaking, they wouldn't be able to see it. But that's what I do to get through that event where I'm hoping that I'll be able to walk around and engage with the audience more the next time I have one of those engagements.
I love it. Putting yourself out there, being uncomfortable. That's what we should be doing as entrepreneurs. Hey, I got a question for you. What would you say to the teenage self or the early 20 self, having that stigma or identity of a CPA, a numbers person, knowing that there is more in you, but we tend to either put that on ourselves or other people put that on us. Like, what would you say to your younger self?
My teenage and college self, and really my 30-year-old self, I'm 41 now, never would have believed that I could be an entrepreneur.
But
Let
what would you say to yourself?
alone
Go back and say, this is what I would say. I would say, Erin, you what? What would you say?
Erin, you can do it. You're going to fly. Stop being so nervous about everything. Stop
Yeah.
worrying about everything. Fly.
All right.
Set yourself
Let's just
free.
I love it. I love it. I think there's a lot of people that probably need to hear that. I mean, it's so easy. We're careful with our own daughters to not give them a label that is, because it's not necessarily who they are. It's so easy to start labeling our kids, ourselves. And so I don't like to label them, the athlete, the student, the whatever it is. Like, I don't want them to be stuck with a label. I want them to be free, more free as they begin to discover who they really are.
Yeah, I think that's smart, and that's something that's kind of been lost sight of with the current education system, where they're sort of trained just to all do the same thing and follow the rules, right?
100%. All right, let's shift gears. How much were you working first started these things, and then like how much are you working today? So two simple questions. Don't go into those yet, but I want to know, when the first year in business, how many hours were you working a week, and the last quarter in business, how many hours were you working on that business per week?
Yeah, so I'll skip to maybe second or third year in business when we had more units open and our growth
Sure.
happened.
At the peak. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'd say on average easily 60 hours a week. And now today I would say, if we're saying only solo work, I'm probably at about 30, but my goal is to be at 5.
Good. Good. So I think that's a lot. How do you go from 60 to 70 hours a week to where you are at 30 with a goal of 5? Because I love that. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they're in the grind, and they feel like their worth is in the grind. They're not really going to take a step back to think like, how do I replace myself in these different areas? So what was a catalyst of you saying, I would really like to get down to 5 hours of actual working on the business a week? What was the catalyst of?
So, it's actually, we've been trying to reduce my hours for about 5 years.
When you say we, who's we?
Oh, my husband and I, we operate the business together. So own and operate together.
He's a pretty smart guy.
So the catalyst was, as the kids got older, they started saying all the time, Mommy, you work too much, and wanting my attention, and, oh, you're working again. And then it's really sad to admit, breaking promises to them because X comes up at work and I need to fix it now.
Give me an example. What was, if you look back, what came up at work where you maybe hurt your kids with that? Or there was a moment like, oh, I remember this moment.
Problem is that I had no boundaries at all, Erik. So it would be anything. So It could be lead increase coming through. Oh, I need to get back to them right away. They can't wait till tomorrow. It could be a message from a tenant needing help with something. It could be I mean, literally anything.
And it's
Anything
easy
I would
when you're
stop, and then I would deal with the work thing. So
because it seems so important. You're there with your kid, whether you're playing a game with them or and I've done that. I was playing a game with one of my daughters, and all of a sudden somebody needed something. It wasn't my emergency, somebody else's emergency that I had the solution to. I stopped the game with my daughter one time and said, I got to take this call. And then I went and took that call. And, but I came back and I realized like I didn't need to take that call. And it wasn't right then, it absolutely didn't need to. But I also saw in her eyes how she's like, that call was more important than the next 5 minutes playing this game one-on-one with her. That intention of doing that with her and giving her my full undivided attention for another 5 minutes while I go take a call that I didn't need to take. It wasn't time pressing, but for some reason, like I'm going to be on it so I can help here. That was one of the moments for me. I'm like, wait a second, I needed to have different boundaries in my life and what I see as important. So sounds like you had a lot of those as well.
yeah, I mean, luckily, I haven't missed any of the concerts or the sporting events or anything like that. Luckily, that's just in general in the home life.
But you recognize it. And I think so many kids out there are saying, Mom, Dad, put the phone away, get off the computer, look at me, talk to me. And it's easy to ignore that, to be like, hey, they just don't understand. They're a kid. They don't understand that I've got to work. I've got to do this other stuff. But for some reason, you're like, hey, I want to change. And so that was a catalyst for you to be like, I need to get rid of some of these hours and pass them on to somebody else, right?
Yeah,
What
exactly.
were the next steps that you took?
So then just growing a team, and we made mistakes hiring wrong people and stuff where it kept me in the weeds to keep it.
No good franchisee's ever done that.
Well, I think every business owner does that, so we don't need to dwell on it. But so now in the last 8 or 9 months, we've actually hired two people we decided that my role really was two roles for employees, not try to mesh it into one. So we hired an executive, and well worth the money, by the way. At first, it was kind of like, oh, do we really want to pay someone this much? But well worth it. If anyone's wondering if they should, yes.
I know roughly how much you're paying that person, and it is not inexpensive. You could do a lot with that money.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's absolutely the right thing to do.
And a marketing staff person too. So parceled off the marketing into its own role, and then the executive level position. So then, training.
What was that person's background? So what was that person's background before they came and helped you as an executive in the salon business?
Yeah, I don't recall exactly what the old title was, but she worked for Panera. I think it was like VP of operations. She had like 150 of the corporate units she was responsible for. So food industry, which food and restaurant, I think is a good one to segue into salon. There's some similarities.
Well, you're working 24/7 in that business. You're dealing with the customers all the time. And if someone's overseeing that many, that they know how to work, and they are not cheap. So I think I just want the audience to have an understanding of like the caliber of person that you brought in. It's not like somebody that managed a coffee shop before.
Right. And she wasn't even looking for a job. We had a wonderful recruiting company that found her and wrote a message that said the right thing, that tugged at her heart to check us out. But really in the interview process, I didn't ask a lot of questions. I was just trying to read her energy and her vibe. So I was saying, all right, are my salon professionals going to accept her as a replacement of me? So what I wanted is I was just feeling energy, personality, that kind of thing. And it was, from the first meeting we had in person, it's like, oh yeah, they're going to love her.
Well, that's important too, because in that business, it's like for somebody else, are your employees going to accept this person and listen to this person? For you, it's not necessarily employees, because there's some of those, but it's all the salon professionals, because they build that relationship with you. And so you needed to have that person that they could build that relationship with. So that was super important. So she comes on board, you have somebody else come on board. Like, good decision, bad decision.
Great decision. But and the thing is, like, I wanted this for 5 years, right? So logically, it didn't, like, I've had trouble giving up the control, and well, it's been kind of confusing. Now, trust is earned, right? So it takes some time. So for me to be comfortable giving off tasks, I had to peel them off slowly, a lot slower than my husband wanted. But like, he wanted me to just, oh, here you go. See you later. Minimal timeline. No. We're gonna just do parts of my job, make sure that she's comfortable with that. Then we'll do the next part. So for me to be comfortable and gain the trust, I had to do it piecemeal, like one part at a time, and that's what works for me. So I don't think anybody, if they're hiring a high level executive like that to replace themselves, they don't have to worry about. I don't think you should worry about any time frame or what anyone else is telling you for how long it should take, and just stay in your flow and what's the speed that's feeling right for you. So that went really well. So I'd say, from June to December. So about a 6-month period. I was thinking it would be more like a 3-month rollout. It ended up being 6 months, but it's okay, because I think she's better at her job because of it too.
What are you doing now that's different than you were doing before? Now that you might have time to think, time to take a step back and to see things from a different angle, are you at the point where you can look back and see anything differently? Do something, how you engage in the business today that's differently than it was before she was on board?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have to be in the weeds anymore as much. So what I'm finding is, when I end up in the weeds, it's because I'm choosing to, and I'm kind of falling back into my own pattern. So it's like, okay, wait. You have this person that you trust. I do trust her. So I just got, all right, let's take a step back. So, yes, I definitely can have the schedule I want now and participate in the pieces of business I want. One of them I want to keep is the overall marketing vision, just because that's kind of been part of our secret sauce, so to speak, right? One of my biggest strengths. So that's the end goal, is the high level, about 5 hours a week, marketing vision, major executive decisions, site selection, those sort of, growth, hiring and firing people.
How do you manage her? Is it like, what's the cadence of meetings, of phone calls, of standing meetings, or is it random at different times? Like, how do you, as a large franchisee, basically, you're the founder of that market, and then now you hire that key executive. How do you manage that person?
So I didn't do it very well before. So Erik, one of thing that isn't a strength for me is having direct reports. I didn't do it well before. So, I'm a creative. So things pop in my mind, and then I do them. And then it's, then this idea comes. I got to write it down and send an email. Then this idea pops in. So that's very hard for somebody working underneath me, right? So then she's the one who created the professional cadence that allowed for it to be more successful. I'm not going to take credit for it. It was her. So we have a shared note that's on our phones. So when I have those idea drops, I put them on our note list that's categorized instead of sending an email or a text.
What did it say? So on there it says, is it like Erin's ideas, and then you just bullet point them under there?
Erin and Bree shared notes, and there's categories for sales, marketing, executive items, employee development, just kind of all the different categories. So then I can just pop a note in there when I get that idea that pops in. And then we have a weekly one-on-one with me and her. And then we have a weekly meeting with her and the marketing person. So the three of us once a week as well.
So how long is that meeting with you and her?
It's usually 60 to 90 minutes.
Okay. And what gets accomplished in that meeting? Like, what have you learned about that meeting that you would share with somebody else to say, like, this is how we've started to run a successful meeting as, as a visionary and the integrator?
Yeah, so then she can ask any questions about like specific situations that have come up, because I have the historical knowledge in here about, Sola tenants and maybe past things that happened with them, and this just past how we operate the company and stuff. So so we kind of started just if there's anything that she needs assistance with or questions, how to handle a situation. And then I usually come into it with a layout. It's mostly sales, what we end up talking about in that one, because we have the marketing meeting later in the week. So, I'll just bring ideas for how to fill studios. So most of the time is spent on sales strategy, actually.
What is she really good at? Where you're like, man, she really excels at this thing.
Connecting with other humans and people, and having positive interactions when, when she's talking with someone. Conflict resolution, very strong. Development of employees at her direct reports, very strong. Her sales has taken off in recent months, so I'd say her sales skills are also very strong. So then she can lead our other sales managers, because she can step in herself and get those results as well.
Are you good at conflict resolution as well?
I'm good at it, but I hate it.
Okay, so talk to me about that, because I like this topic. I'm okay with I'm fine with conflict. I can go into that and I don't get heated. I don't get nervous going into it. It's not a thing for me. But I've noticed with founders and franchisees and employees, like a lot of people are not good with conflict resolution, or they hate it, so they kind of avoid it. So what have you learned about conflict resolution?
So that was something I did pass off to her on day one, Erik. There was no problem. Like, oh, these calls are coming up. Here you go. So, I'm good at it and I can do it, but my problem is I'm very empathetic. I take things very personally, which I think a lot of franchise operator owners do. So when these things would come up, it's the sort of thing I excel at it. I'm a really good listener. I would make a little outline of what I was going to say, spend most of the time letting them do the talking instead of me is, one of the strategies to succeed, I think, in conflict resolution and keeping emotions out and those sort of things. So I excel at it and I would get good results at it, but then I would lose sleep for nights after and I'd worry about it for a week. So it's something that personally, my personality isn't very good at that. For as far as the loving life and stuff, if I'm trying to add joy to my life, I can't do that.
No, and that's good. I mean, you need to do things, work on the business, on the things that bring you joy. And that's something that I've learned over the years too. So I'm good at certain things, like selling franchises. I could go into franchise development and sell a bunch of franchises, but I don't enjoy it. It drains me, brings me energy. You guys bought property and built, or bought building and converted that into a Sola. Looking back, I look at that and be like, I wish I would have done that. Like, that was such a smart thing for you guys to do. It really wasn't encouraged, I don't believe, when we were franchisees early on. There were not very many people doing it. The conversations were, you leverage the landlords. You don't buy your own building. You leverage that, and that you get open up for less out of pocket, et cetera, et cetera. Why did you guys do that to begin with? And then, like, how happy are you that you guys started to buy?
Well, I think Patrick had read that McDonald's book. Isn't there like a McDonald's book or something?
There's some book about McDonald's.
Yeah,
Yes.
and real estate strategy and whatever. So,
Yep.
but it just makes sense. So from the start with this business, he just was not understanding why corporate wasn't pushing for people to purchase property. Like it goes hand in hand. We're a landlord, right? For our salon professionals. So it makes sense that you would own the physical asset as well. It makes it more profitable. It also now we have an asset we can hold on to and pass down to our children. So I'm not sure. There's not very many people doing it, but if I could go back, every single one of ours would be an owned property instead of a lease.
I think the reason is, this is just purely speculation, is franchisees can get more opened up faster if they rent. So from the franchisor standpoint, they want more open faster. And I'm not saying they did this to, just to line their own pockets, because I know that that's the strategy that the original founders did. And it's been sold for years now, multiple times. So, but I think that was their strategy. And so it's typical. Founders have a strategy, and then that strategy is passed on to the franchisees. But I think you guys are so smart to have done it the way that you did.
Also eliminates a lot of costs too. So when we're our own landlord, we don't have all these inflated common area maintenance costs and management fees and all this crap. Those cams are pretty inflated most of the time, I think. So when we own buildings and we see what it actually is, it's like not even close to what the landlords are charging.
So, are you looking at other brands? Are you going to stick with what you have right now? What's the future hold in terms of franchising?
I think we want to continue to grow Sola here in the Twin Cities. I think there's still space for us to open more Sola units. We're interested in also looking for real estate opportunities throughout the whole country. So move outside of Minnesota. And just grow the real estate portfolio. Personally, I'm not interested in any other franchise brands. My husband might be, but I'm kind of leaning towards other things for my next step. So I just want to be out there helping others.
If people want to see how do people find you on Instagram? They're like, I like this Erin lady. She started with, was nervous and social, and now she's doing cool stuff. Where can people find you on social?
So our business page is at Sola Twin Cities. And then I just started a new personal page. So I had kept my personal completely on lockdown and private, etc. And I actually just a few weeks ago opened up a public personal page, and it's called the Erin Evolution. So at the Erin Evolution, and going to be some fun stuff on there soon.
Awesome. Well, so fun to have you on. I've known you for years, and I'm excited to get to have this conversation and for everyone else to get to know you. So thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much, Erik. This was fun.
Thanks for listening to the Franchise Secrets podcast. Links to everything can be found over at franchisesecrets.com. And if you want my help with anything from starting your own franchise to growing your current franchise business, please visit scalablefranchise.com.